ENTPs are really two different types with very different motivations. We're going to be using the Enneagram to break it all down, and you're never going to look at ENTPs the same way again. ENTPs are innovative, free thinkers who aren't afraid of controversy. But the way they do all this and why is different depending on their Enneagram type. So the two main Enneagram types that tend to be ENTPs are 7s, the enthusiasts, and 8s, the protectors. 7s are motivated to be free and experience new things and to avoid pain. 8s are motivated to be in control so that others aren't controlling them. So there are a lot of similarities between these two different ENTP types, but there are also a lot of key differences. We're going to be looking at some classic ENTP traits and seeing whether they fit more in with type 7 or type 8s. ENTPs are known for being expert debaters, but how they do this and why is different depending on their Enneagram type. 7s debate for the novelty. That's what's driving them. They want to have fun. They like to debate in order to explore a new idea and often like to take on the role of being the devil's advocate. So like taking a position that's contrary and that other people aren't going to agree with, because that's going to be a more fun debate. Kind of like the change my mind guy, like, taking on a position like mealy apples are better than crispy ones. Like Jar Jar Binks is the best character the Star Wars franchise has ever seen. Change my mind. There's apparently a whole subreddit devoted to unpopular opinions. It's like a whole thing devoted to ENTP 7s. Yeah, like what? Like they might take on a position that other people don't think to take on, or maybe that's even weird or gross because they're not scared of the controversy with it. Something like hair and food, is it really that big a deal? And they're going to use like a lot of different reasons and logic for being able to back up their claim. So at the end of debating with a 7, you might feel like you've been run around in circles or like been trapped into like some logical fallacies. And they do all this with a really sharp wit and often a smile on their face. They're just like, don't take it so seriously. 8s, on the other hand, debate to dominate. 8s play to win, and they're going to prove that they have won and that they're right. It's usually more focused and it's to make a point. Often what they choose to debate about connects with their strong sense of justice and fairness. Like who won a game and who cheated and how they weren't cheating. Unlike a 7 who's going to have lots of words to prove their point in a debate, an 8 is often going to use their action to prove that they were right. So it's not just a battle of wits, it's a contest of wills. So, like proving that it's fine to eat food that's been sitting out for hours by taking the sandwich and eating it in front of the person. It says that closing time is in 20 minutes. Who cares that that bartender is saying that you have to leave now? I'm finishing my drink, and I'm going to finish it slowly and stare at them. 8s are also fast thinkers and use logic, but they tend to also tap into their intuition in order to know if they're right. So stating things with total certainty, like, I'm a great judge of character, and that guy is an asshole. So an ENTP 7 might get bored during a debate and just kind of like stop debating it because it's not interesting anymore. An 8 is not going to do that. They're going to double down on their side of the argument, even if it's not fun anymore. They're not going to cut and run, and they are definitely going to go down fighting. At the end of a debate with an ENTP 8, you're going to know you lost. They're going to make you wish you didn't even start the debate. Someone's going to be crying and it's not the 8. So 7s debate for sport while 8s debate to assert their power. So another classic trait that people talk about for ENTPs is that they're charming and charismatic. But those are actually two different things, and those different Enneagram types tend to use them really differently. 7s tend to really use charm more than charisma. Charm is a skill, and 7s are experts at it. ENTP 7s are sweet talkers who can talk their way out of anything or into anything. So I know an ENTP 7 who once was walking down a street in a busy city and saw that there was a film crew in a really long line, and they had no reason to go over there except that they were curious and what was going on. So they went over there and was standing in the line, and then the camera crew came over to them and was like, "Hey, are you really excited about seeing this comedian play?" And they were like, "Yeah, I love that comedian, and he's like awesome, and I've seen all his work." And they're telling this whole story, and then they got to go to the backstage and they got a free pass and they got to meet the comedian, and it was like super amazing. And they ended up in the video for the promotional video for that comedian. And they had never seen the comedian before. They had no idea who that person was. They got in entirely by sweet talking their way in. How? Or this guy who used to show up at different tech companies just to get the free food, and he didn't even work there. And that's really crazy. You're going to need to use a lot of charm and have a lot of confidence. And what they're confident about is that it's going to all work out fine. They're optimistic. So 7s are charming. They do this all with a wink and a smile. 8s are more about charisma. This is something you have. It's not something you put on like charm. It's just having like raw power. They command respect and attention. They have a love it or leave it attitude. Ultimately, 8s don't care what you think about them. They're not doing all of this for you. So they tend to be able to do things by being inspiring and magnetic. So the ENTP 8 that I know will walk over to the bar and barely say anything and then comes back with free drinks. It's like big alpha vibes. It's a lot of gravitas, blind confidence. You can't make them do anything. You can't push them into something. And it's powerful. It's charismatic. And it's not just what they're saying that conveys this. A lot of it is their body language. So 7s are more charming and 8s are more charismatic. By the way, if you're liking this video, press the like button. Also, if you're really liking it, let me know in the comments below. But also, you might be interested in my self-typing cards. They're really excellent tools for understanding yourself and others better. And I also do one-on-one coaching, so reach out to me. I'd love to hear from you. So another classic ENTP trait that you hear is that they have no follow-through, that they can't focus, won't finish, and can't stick with things. This is really more of a 7 trait. This is because 7s are drawn to novelty. That's what they're motivated by. So sticking with something and following through can get boring. And so 7s tend to have shiny object syndrome. They have like 5,000 ideas a second, and things generally come easy to them. They're quick thinkers and they're generalists because of this, but they struggle to stick with things. There's always something more exciting and interesting on the horizon, and so they're drawn to that next thing. So, deciding to take up saxophone because that would be fun, but then deciding to do competitive kite flying, learning the ins and outs of mead brewing, glass blowing, juggling, opening a restaurant when you have no experience doing that. So they're always being pulled towards that new thing, and they want to avoid things being boring or painful. And so if things get hard, a 7 is going to probably be like, I'm out. And they're okay with saying that because they have all of those ideas to jump to for the next thing. So it makes them really good at coming up with new possibilities, but it can make it hard to stick with things. ENTP 8s, on the other hand, tend to follow through with things out of sheer willpower. So they're going to stick with things not because someone told them to or asked them to do something or because it's fun. They're going to stick with it because their word is their bond. If they decided to do something, they're going to do it. Even if it stops being something that they want to do, they said they were going to do it, they're going to do it. They're less distractible and they're also more stubborn. They also really care about actual results and not just ideas. 8s are motivated by a challenge, so if something's difficult, they're not going to cut and run. They want to prove they can do it. And a lot of times, this takes follow-through. So this might be something like taking on a crazy exercise challenge or a bet or a dare and following through with it. Like your friends all decide that you're going to wake up at 5 a.m. every morning and go to the gym, and then none of your friends stick with it, but you do because you're going to prove to them that you're going to go for 3 months at 5 a.m. to the gym just to prove that you did and they didn't. Or growing out your mustache for a year because someone said you wouldn't. or only eating Taco Bell for an entire week for every meal to win a bet. And then the winnings didn't even cover the cost of the food, but you won. Or, like following a driver that cut you off for 3 miles to teach them a lesson. So 8s tend to follow through with things because they see themselves as somebody who upholds their word. But you can't always do that, and so when they don't, they tend to blame someone else. So 7s struggle with follow through but have great ideas, and 8s tend to follow through but in order to make a point. So another classic ENTP trait that people talk about is that they're insensitive. This can be true for both 7s and 8s, but for different reasons. For 7s, insensitivity tends to come from not wanting to be around negative feelings. They're often trying to avoid those feelings in themselves, and so they're not aware of when that's happening for somebody else. It's hard for them to be in touch with their own pain and sadness, let alone somebody else's. So an ENTP 7 may come off as insensitive because they don't adjust their tone or change how they're talking about something in the wrong setting. Like you're telling the ENTP 7 about how you lost your job and they're like, oh, that's really hard. Oh, you know what I just did? I went to my vacation in Hawaii. It was so awesome. Let me tell you about all the things that happened there. And you're like, that wasn't really the response I was hoping for. And they're thinking to themselves, ooh, that sounds really hard. I'm going to change the subject with something fun and exciting because I don't want to feel those sad things. You probably don't want to feel those sad things too. And this is really fun. So they're not insensitive on purpose. It's just that they have other things on their mind. So sometimes this might distract them from thinking about other people's needs or how they're feeling about something. Like they might invite you to that cheese convention that's happening, even though they know that you're lactose intolerant. For ENTP 8s, insensitivity can stem more from being honest, even when it's a really bad idea to be. They're not going to change how they're telling you about something because of your feelings. As far as 8s are concerned, your feelings are your responsibility. They're helping you to not be weak. They're making you stronger by not being sensitive. So your boyfriend broke up with you and it was on your birthday and you're really sad and your 8 friend is like, you know what? Him. Don't be sad for him. He can't make you feel sad. Get over him. You're fine. There's plenty of fish in the sea. You know what? Get your jacket. We're getting margaritas. And you're like, I'm not really up for margaritas. But it's like, don't let them win. So 7s can be insensitive in order to not get bummed out by bad feelings. And 8s can be insensitive because they're trying to make you strong and they don't like weakness. They're obviously not always insensitive, but this can happen with both 7s and 8s. So another trait that gets mentioned for ENTPs is that they're indecisive. And this tends to be more of a 7 trait. ENTP 7s don't like to have options closed off to them. They often are experiencing FOMO. And making a decision means that you don't get to make a decision on something else. They're tempted by all the possibilities that are out there. So choosing just one thing is really hard. So even something like listening to the radio for a 7 can be like, oh, this song is really good, but oh, what else is on the other station? I gotta go see. And then you miss out on the song that was really good to see what else was out there. 7s really want to be free, and having to decide on something can pin you down, and then you're not getting to be a free spirit. 8s, on the other hand, tend to be very decisive. They tend to go with their gut and they feel comfortable closing off options as long as they're the ones choosing to. They want autonomy more than freedom and they're fiercely independent. It's not hard for them to decide what to order, what to wear, what movie to go see, what vacation to go on, as long as they're the ones deciding. There's just not as many what ifs for 8s. It's like they just know. This doesn't mean that they have everything planned out. We're still talking about ENTPs. It's just that they're able to make a decision even if it's at the last minute. So like the vacation is happening in an hour. They just bought the plane ticket and it's time to get on the plane. So 7s are indecisive because they don't want to be tied down by making a decision. While 8s are fine with making a decision as long as it's not someone else making it and tying them down. So you might have been hearing all of this and you relate to all of it for both 7 and 8, and that's actually really normal. 7 and 8 are both next to each other in the Enneagram, and so you might be a 7 with a wing in 8 or an 8 with a wing in 7. Or you might have both 7 and 8 in your tri-type. Or maybe you heard all of this and you don't relate to it at all. And that's also normal. You might not be a 7 or an 8, but you're an ENTP. ENTPs can be other Enneagram types, and that would mean that they have other motivations that express differently. So for example, you might be an ENTP 3, which is less common than a 7 or an 8, but it does happen. So whether you identify with 7 or 8 or something else, I'd love to hear from you. Let me know in the comments below. I have been learning so much. The comments have been incredible, and I can't wait to hear from you again soon. So thanks again. Bye!